whenever I started to open this book up and started to read it, I just knew I was wrong about atheism. Believe that there was no such thing as the soul. Um, that's important, by the way. So I did believe that there was no such thing as the soul, spirits, none of that. I was fully convinced of naturalists, and I actually found it pretty absurd when I occasionally I would run into an atheist who yet believed in ghosts or something, and it's how do you line that up? But yeah, I was pretty convinced that the scientists they 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 had all the answers, all the important answers, um, and there wasn't anything that wasn't sufficiently explained by them. I don't think I knew the questions to ask to see why that was wrong, but that's what I believed. Was a pretty diehard atheist. Just to give you an
Yeah.
example, whenever I was in college, so my first year of college, I didn't really socially interact or anything. I was pretty much a recluse, but like by my second year of college, when I was starting to be more social, there was a time there was a campus preacher, and so I went to the spot where he preached whenever he wasn't there once, and I went up and talked about Pixie the pony. I invented just this little script for a fake religion, and Pixie the pony would bring you salvation, and you would forever live in the Amazon rainforest if you drank enough green tea. So I was actively mocking Christianity at that point, acting like it was the most silly, absurd thing, even though just a few years prior I would have called myself a Christian. But yes, that's how convinced I was that atheism was true. Is that I was actively mocking God and inventing things, or thinking I invented things to mock Christianity. So it was a period of 6 years where where someone asked me, do you believe in God? The answer to that question for me would have been no. So there was a period 6 years where I was definitely an atheist. The first few years of that, I was really passionate about it. Eventually, I saw like all this kind of culture of personality, infighting, people accepting a lot of other views that don't relate to God, atheists accepting a lot of other views that don't relate to God without much evidence. So there's different things I just critically thought about, and I was like, oh, atheists aren't really the adults that they claim to be either. Like I don't know. So if I will watch a debate between John Lennox and Richard Dawkins, I don't think you need to be a Christian to say that the adult in the room there, the one who's more mature, is certainly John Lennox. And so the behavior I saw by atheists online um, made me think, okay, well, maybe these guys aren't as smart as they tell everyone that they are. Started a chapter of Young Americans for Liberty, which was an offshoot of Ron Paul's um, Youth for Ron Paul campaign. But anyway, started this chapter of that organization. And the first year wasn't too successful, but the second year we had some good meetings. It was one of the more successful chapters in the state. And the gentleman who motivated me to restart the organization, and who I just kind of let be president of the organization because I didn't want to haul around all these promotional materials and books anymore that we would do at tabling events. His father was a psychology professor, and he gave him this book, which he shared with me, that was Quantum Physics, Near Death Experiences, Eternal Consciousness, Religion, and the Human Soul. And if you don't mind, I only want to read a brief description here of this text. But this teaches the subject of quantum physics to the lay reader in math and terminology that is simple to understand, describes how and why reality, this universe, is interdependent with consciousness in order to exist, as defined by the founders of quantum physics over a half a century ago. To describe this mechanism in detail, how we interact with, manipulate, and define this finite universe. To present a working definition for consciousness that is suitable to the formal definitions of quantum physics, as well as the philosophies and religions of man. Those are excerpts from the description that's, I believe, also on the back of the book. I haven't had that book for a while, but whenever I started to open this book up and started to read it, I just knew I was wrong about atheism, and I knew I was wrong about faith, and I knew that um, consciousness must predate the material world, and I just knew what I was reading was true. Um, that's what drew me back. But if I hadn't started this political organization, I wouldn't have ran into the man who showed me this book, and so it's as if my interests were guided so that I would come back to God.
It seems like once you read that book, that consciousness or a conscious mind precedes matter. Was it this just this aha moment that you thought, okay, I need to move back and take another look at God and Christianity? Did you talk with people about it? What was your path like? Was it sudden? Was it gradual?
I was so eccentric at the time, and I was so excited about this passage. I was nearing the end of my college years. I didn't have a definitive plan for what I was going to do afterwards, but I was a very passionate advocate for this book and what was written in it. I would like show people the passages. Actually, so we were going to a state chapter like meeting, like a state chapter conference. So where all the university chapters were meeting, and on that ride, like I was talking to the other guys and reading the passages from this book because they knew me as an atheist. They knew I was, I was pretty certain in my atheism, and now I'm like, guys, I believe in God now. If you're reading the Bible, if you're accepting that multiple religions may have a claim to truth, and then you start studying the New Testament, it's pretty clear that um, Christianity is not leaving you the door open to say that other religions can be true. You know, so if you're saying that Islam is true and Christianity is true, well, Jesus either died on the cross and was resurrected, as Christianity says, or he was only made to appear that he died on a cross, like Islam says. One of those things both can't be true. So I landed on Christianity, um, but because God pulled me there. I don't know what else to say.
No, that's beautiful. Because at the end of the day, your change of heart and mind, if God does exist, is a work of God. God, God helps you see. He draws you to Himself, and so that you understand that He is truth. He is the way. He is the life. So you came to that understanding. It sounds like that book was very powerful in your life, and God used that in a way to really, I guess, illuminate your mind to what is true and what is real. And
I met my wife back in 2019, and got found the job that I'm working at now in 2019. So I got married to her then in October 23. Her dad and mom were diagnosed with cancer months later. So her dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Um, my wife and I flew out to him, and I talked to him about Jesus because at our wedding, my dad and I, because my dad and I, we were really into Jesus, and so we were talking about him. And her dad texted her at one point, saying he was an atheist, and he had a shirt that said "Don't pray for me, sinners," right? And so uh, that's where he was. And he was a nurse. And I talked to him, and I talked to him about Ecclesiastes, talking about how life without God has no meaning, no purpose. Um, and so I talked to him about Ecclesiastes, and he subscribed to my YouTube channel, and he was watching all these testimony videos. And so while I was out there, he downloaded a Bible app because I got him interested in looking into Ecclesiastes. Um, I was away from the room he was in, and my wife mentioned at one point, he's like, "Hey, he keeps saying the word Ecclesiastes." Uh, so he did eventually read it, um, Also, on one of her trips there, I gave my wife a book to give to him by C.S. Lewis, Grief Observed, um, the book that he wrote about his wife's passing.